We're live. So yeah, just jumping on here, kind of getting set up here last minute. So hopefully you can join in here and let me know if you have any questions or anything like that. I just released the song for my father. Recording or lesson just this past week. This weekend, Saturday. And I've been doing some talks on the chord progression recently. So let me know what you've been working on too. First time picking up the guitar today. And happy Mother's Day to any mothers out there. So I'll do a little noodling around. I will say next weekend I do plan to play with some backing tracks. So me kind of playing live with some pre-recorded tracks and stuff. So it's been kind of like the next step thing. I was thinking about doing that today, but just not entirely ready. Waiting for that, but hopefully join me next Sunday for that. I'm gonna start out doing a little, let's call this warm-up. And you can ask me questions about my kind of warm-up content if you like. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of warm the fingers up a little bit and maybe get some ideas for your own warm-ups and stuff like that too. In that case, I kind of just sort of noodled through a little bit of Stella by Starlight. That tune has been on my mind a little bit because I put it together an arrangement, which has kind of stalled here for a couple weeks. But I think that's going to be my next chord melody arrangement that'll come out on Saturday. So I did start it, piece it together. One of my goals there is going to be to keep it really pretty close to what you might see on a lead sheet, and so you have something to work with. And that's sort of one of my big missions here on this YouTube channel, is to give folks a real practical kind of starting point on some tunes with some really basic arrangements that you could use in a jam session that will really be compatible, with the changes that most folks play, let's say on Stella by Starlight. But of course, when it comes to playing, uh, solo or doing, working with a group that maybe you're more established with, or have more rapport or more times to maybe rehearse or something, then you can really kind of step out and do some alternate changes and things. All right. Good morning, Jeffrey. Thanks for joining. And Matan, thank you for joining. And so I'm on YouTube right now and Facebook, but I'm doing YouTube vertical. So I'm just going to see if I can get a little assistance here. Okay. I left my tea in the other room. See if I can get somebody to bring it to me. A little distortion here. What that's about. I noticed a little crunchiness in the previous recording as well. So. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do a little more playing, maybe some actual warm up. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to do a little more playing. I'm going to try to keep it to more of kind of my warm up, typical kind of warm up kind of things. Okay, so one of the things that I kind of enjoy doing in a typical kind of warm up routine is to play some symmetrical type note collections, and I use this this name note collections partly because I think that as part of learning the guitar and teaching the guitar and teaching jazz guitar is that the way folks may be approaching scales is not always very constructive and may not always lead to the results that that folks are maybe looking for. So I think reframing things as note collections might help just inspire a slightly different perspective on that. So you could think of a collection of tones and then make adjustments to the collection of tones. So change change from, let's say, for example, one chord scale I've been talking about in the member area on YouTube and on my website is this part of the chord progression where we have the D flat 7 and we're in the key of 4 flats, so think of that as kind of a note collection. And so how do we accommodate this tone? Well, we can take the key of 4 flats and really just adjust that one tone, and we end up with a Lydian dominant type sound. So thinking of pools or collections of tones that may be helpful, rather than thinking kind of scale, and note collections, with the concept of moving through time and adapting the note collection to kind of flow with the harmony. All right. Thank you for joining ProSide Live. Josh Guitar, yeah, thanks for joining. Glad to see you here too. Thanks for joining in. What kinds of guitar maker? Well, this guitar is an Ibanez. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. Play Oriental riff. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's a specific riff or if that's a certain style you're interested in. But interesting to, just speaking of note collections, the Greeks chose to divide the octave into 7 notes, and they kind of sit distant from one another, and then you kind of end up with two half steps, right? So you get mostly whole steps and then 2 half steps, and you can almost think about this as strangers sitting on one long park bench, and so strangers will typically kind of fill in the largest gaps, right? So if you kind of divide an octave up in that way, it follows that similar kind of phenomenon. But back to Oriental or Eastern culture, which I'm not going to claim to know a lot about, but they were tending to use 5 note collections, dividing the octave into 5, and that's kind of I believe where we get the whole concept of pentatonic type scales. Right. And so that forms a lot of the basis of some American music, like, so sometimes I'll teach Wish You Were Here, and that's very kind of anchored and rooted into pentatonic scales. Right, it's kind of like some notes in between. Right, some slides in and some things like that. But the pentatonic scale, and I'm no historian, but interesting to think about this sort of melting pot of cultures and in the United States. So we know we have kind of the the pentatonic, and of course the traditional 7-note scales that we work from in Western music. So just some thoughts on that. So I know a lot of folks who joined the vertical. I appreciate you joining in. They may not be super familiar with me. So thanks for checking this out. And I don't generally do like covers or play requests on here, but I'm talking a little more about improvisation and general knowledge and maybe some insights into the guitar and practice. But it's interesting too that we don't name the 7-note scales. It seems like they're almost kind of floating out there without an official name like the pentatonic, and maybe that's just because it's been such an assumed part of Western music for so long. But I really like to think about them as heptatonic scales. And I don't know if any folks out there are in agreement with that or interested in getting that going at all. But it's interesting that we do talk about octatonic scales and we talk about pentatonic scales. Those are fairly commonly talked about. And then even hexatonic scales, which I've talked about a little bit on the channel. But heptatonic. Yeah, so pair of sights. Yeah, that's actually what I was warming up with earlier was whole tone scale. And then, since there are two whole tone scales, if you just go up or down a half step and so maybe play 4 from one and then maybe play 4 from the other, and then 4 notes. So I'm just kind of going back and forth. Right. So that's kind of fun for me to do, which you might try to do as well when warming up, is to just try to step away a little bit from harmony and try to get into some kind of physical patterns, because I'm really trying to warm up physically in a lot of ways. All right. Joe Time asks Jeff Beck or Dwayne Allman. I hope this is not a totally cheesy thing to say, but I think you get to a certain level, or those artists get to a certain level of mastery, and then it's just art after that. I don't know. It becomes kind of taste and what resonates with you. So I think you get. I think one of those players on that level, they get to a certain level, and they're just they're great. So I can't really say one's best. One might be best at one thing. Someone has another specialty. So that's kind of how I feel about that. Edgard Hosni, hey man, how can you boost our solos more meaningful in jazz? Yeah, chord tones, etc. Yeah, so the thing in jazz, and really it's kind of like a repertoire thing, is that you're going to be moving through various key centers in one given song, oftentimes. And so negotiating the changes is really, I think, the thing that you're after, because maybe unlike at least some rock, or maybe a large amount of rock, you can kind of play in a key and in a scale and maybe use the pentatonic scale a lot of the times. And that will work really just fine. Now there are instances in rock where playing some changes and suggesting chords is a part of it too. But yeah, so arpeggios and the one thing I would say is study and know arpeggios, and then know the chord scale that would make sense associated with that. So a lot of folks, I think, are doing, like I'm talking about today, doing scales and not connecting that to harmony. So getting specific with harmony at a given moment and over time, let's say in an overall tonal piece, is important. And so connecting the chord tones and non-chord tones within a 7-note scale. And then if you take it even further and just get your ear on accepting every note on any given chord and hearing it, and not hearing it with necessarily a judgment of bad or good, but really kind of embracing dissonance if that's there, and then understanding the relationship to a root note. Yeah. So chord tones and that, and also how a note lands in strong beats and weak beats is another thing that you could really study to get things rolling, to build the ability to play through changes in a way that kind of sounds like you know what you're doing. So if you train yourself to have the control to play chord tones on strong beats, not that you would have to do that exclusively, but to train yourself to be really inside on strong beats and be able to do that at any given moment. That's why some of those octatonic scales can be really pretty helpful, because you have 8 notes and you can really train yourself to play on the beat. And so let's say I had E flat 7 or E flat 9. If you take and play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So I took a Mixolydian type chord scale, and I just put a note in between the flat 7 and the root. And so that way you can play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you play any note from any note, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right? And then maybe try that with some harmony. Real main thing is to really get a hold of harmony. All right. Yoda Lesmana says, bro, give away electric guitar. Yeah. Maybe at some point I'll do giveaways and things. Let's see. All right, so I'll do maybe a little more noodling, but I'd love to hear more from folks. Okay, so another thing I'll do when I'm warming up, if I feel like I kind of made a clam or made a kind of like a buzzing sound like I did on a couple of those, I'll just consciously really try to slow down, and then I'll try to monitor like how much I'm thinking about kind of what I'm doing. So there I found myself, I'm just kind of thinking of something interesting interesting to talk about. Um, but anyway, then I'll just consciously kind of slow down a little bit and say, okay, I'm not warmed up enough, and maybe I'm overthinking what I'm doing. So I'll just kind of slow down a little bit. So there, I'm slowing down a little bit. I've kind of crystallized my concept a little bit better. I'm just not kind of like so the first example, I'm kind of like starting to noodle, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, it would be cool to do this, and I'm kind of going through the process and kind of fumbling on a few notes, and so in that example that I just played, um, I've decided, okay, I'm not warmed up, so just slow down, prioritize good tone and not buzzing notes and stuff. And then the next one, I'm thinking, okay, I have an intention, and I know what I'm gonna do, right? So in that case, I did both of those things. I just slow slow down, and um, and then I follow my intention, which was to play whole whole note groups or whole tone groups separated by half steps, and then adjust those over. So do maybe four notes, and kind of like what I was doing with the whole tone scale, just pivot over a little bit by half step to just kind of venture into some other note collections. So when you have the whole tone scale, it's you just have to move a half step in either direction and and then have a new starting note, and then do your whole steps on the whole tone scale. Since there are only two, you're just flopping back between the two. And then on the octatonic scale, we have three of those, right? So then I can move by half steps or whole steps, and you're going to end up in one of those. So I do like four notes of one, and then I'll move into the different note collection, and I'll take four notes from that. So those are nice ways that I find fun and interesting to warm up, and kind of offers me something a little bit specific to work on, but it's kind of vague enough that I can just kind of get my fingers doing some patterns. This sounds clean tone. Yeah. So, interesting thing about that. So yeah, so I generally play, jazz guitar, and mostly play from that history, or that lineage, that discipline, all really, from Charlie Christian, and maybe earlier, but that kind of clean electric guitar sound, that passes through jazz history, and I do some um, some distorted sounds on occasion. But it's interesting. So our daughter was just making a comment the other day. I was playing back the recording I did on a song for my father, and I think she made some comment like, "Why doesn't it sound like a guitar? Why don't your like this recording and other ones? Why doesn't it sound like a guitar?" And I kind of got to thinking, okay, what does that mean? And then I'll give you another example. Uh, I was playing a wedding with a big band, and I was playing the traditional mostly Freddie Green style, and playing. And it was actually a fairly young couple. I guess that's typical, right? But it's like it's kind of old style, big band. So it was, um, um, and maybe it was the parents who were kind of interested in that music. But anyway, so I'm playing, and then I have this part on this one tune that's more contemporary, and so I played distorted guitar, and then folks make this comment, "Oh, now I hear the guitar," but what I think a lot of folks are are thinking is guitar is only distorted. Um, and I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that. But um, so there's a really strong association with the electric guitar and it being overdriven or distorted. And it's interesting that I think early guitar amplification, um, I believe, let's say Leo Fender, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he was really trying to make a clean sounding uh, guitar amp, and so but folks kept pushing, the tones on their, uh, you know, on the amps. So it sounds cool, definitely, just distortion, but um, it's interesting that in the popular culture and especially popular music, electric guitar is basically considered distorted guitar. So any thoughts on that? I would love to know what you think. But actually, I'm kind of noticing a little distortion, and it's bothering me a little bit. And I don't really have anything against distortion, but and as a teenager, I really loved playing with distorted tones and everything. But I find more and more that I just like a nice, good, clean tone, and that tends to work well for me. All right, Luca Rodriguez, hello, how are you doing? Thanks for joining. So I'm gonna do a little more playing around here. Maybe I'll keep kind of going with this theme of the warm-up content that you could work with. Okay, so when you play octatonic type scales, or kind of the symmetrical type anyway, we can play half steps separated by whole steps, which is kind of what I'm doing there, and kind of move around like that. So that's another little area that you can kind of play around with to do warm-ups. And one thing I kind of like about doing these types of note collections for warm-ups is that you can kind of escape tonality. It sort of avoids a tonal center, and So you may have heard me there kind of touching on a little bit of tonality and then getting into one of these type symmetrical type scales, and then um, it just sort of dissipates, and so the ear gets kind of swept away. Um, Jeffrey says, how do you practice rhythm on guitar? So, interesting note. I put a little of my rhythm guitar on this latest recording uh, of a song for your father, our song for my father. Um, and that was actually just originally just that kind of a scratch recording, but I decided to leave it in there. Um, the interesting thing um, about that is when you're doing rhythm guitar in the jazz context or jazz genre, um, you want to. Yeah, I think I would say you have a couple of goals. One is to outline the harmony and the form of the tune. The other one is to react to and enhance the soloist in any way that you can, and that may mean um, different things. So you could practice along with recordings uh, and see if you can, let's say, uh, get a little more busy in the open gaps between phrases. Um, you can work at trying to practice your volume levels during a phrase, and trying to um, maybe not play too loud or not play too soft. Maybe record yourself along with recordings. Uh, it's a difficult thing to practice, I think, because you can practice voicings, you can practice some rhythms, um, but when it comes to a lot of the jazz context, you're reacting and getting conversational a little bit with the soloist, or maybe of the melody of the song as it's being played. Um, but yeah, voicing studies and things like that. I've actually on my website I've got some sound slice um, studies on uh, different chord progressions, like all autumn leaves over time, where you can work at voice leading, which I think is one really great thing to practice, which is to get those shell voicings going and get your chords outlined and moving over time. And I do have on the channel, I do have a couple rhythm guitar things uh, on there, and I will say that when you're playing gigs, like there's a large amount of rhythm guitar that you end up doing. So I would practice and observe uh, on recordings, whether it's a piano player or guitar player, when they're playing, how much they're playing, um, how they're interacting with the soloist. Um, one really I think great rhythm guitar kind of example of rhythm guitar and lead guitar that I think is really instructive is Vic Juris. Check him out on either Dave Liebman recordings or his own recordings. I think you can learn a lot from those recordings, and And also any of the greats when they're comping behind someone else, to try to observe. One really strong rhythm that you can work at is to play dotted quarter notes, and that kind of ties into balancing when you're on the beat and when you're on the end of the beat. So you might not want to be too much on just one side of that. So if I'm playing, let's say I'm playing F minor 9 here. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That I wouldn't do a really long string like that, but if you can kind of get that thing going, and at least use it a little bit sometimes. So that the dotted quarter note tends to be really strong, so you can practice rhythms. And one thing that I did as far as practicing comping and rhythms was I would use a book with compiled rhythms, like Modern Reading in 4/4 Time with Louis Bellson, and also I think it's Mick Goodrick, Factorial Rhythms. I don't know if that's still in print, but they have some longer duration type rhythmic examples in there that are helpful for comping. And of course, they have shorter duration, which can really be helpful for single line more so. Okay, everybody. Well, I'm going to hang out here for another couple of minutes. Thanks so much for joining. I had quite a few people on the vertical live stream, so thanks for joining there. And I will say, please do like and subscribe. No, it's not coming up here. Oh, that's why. This is in the way. Please do like and subscribe. And got videos coming out every Saturday. Been keeping that going for a while. And I'm going to make some efforts to get a midweek video out and all that. You want to support the channel, check out the merch store. You can get this very mug here that I'm using, Guitar and Improvisation Podcast. So check the link down below. Also have books available there. And we've just recently launched our website. So it's kind of in the early stages, but we have some quite a few exercises in there, and I'm doing a live stream. I'll mention too, if you can register for free, and I'm going to be live streaming free on the website to registered users this Tuesday at 8:15 Eastern time. So join me there. You can chat with me and hang out there. But I'll be doing a talk on improvisation and anything you want to talk about, really. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Hope you all have a great time, and I will see you all in the next one.